All right, so hello everyone and welcome to today's learning session. I'm your moderator, Dua, and thank you for taking the time to join us as we learn more about RoadMonk integrations. After today's session, you should be more familiar with integrations RoadMonk supports. You'll get to watch a full demo of how to set up a Jira integration, and you'll also walk away with a better understanding of what these integrations have to offer in terms of benefits. Our presenter, Cody, is one of RoadMonk's resident experts, specifically one of our onboarding and education experts, and he's super excited to share his knowledge on integrations today. So, Cody, I'm going to let you take it away.
Thank you for the introduction, Dua. So as Dua mentioned, I am an onboarding specialist here at RoadMonk in Tampa. I'm going to be delivering the learning session today. So for today's agenda, I'm going to be walking you through the benefits of integrating with RoadMonk. We're first going to touch up on our newest integrations, and I'll mention those in a minute or so. We'll walk through a quick overview of Azure DevOps. I'll walk you through Jira integration, not just talk about it, but also give you a demonstration later. We'll look at it from a portfolio view as well. And then there'll be plenty of time at the end for Q&A. So no more wasted time on double entry, data entry. So bring your backlog epics and stories to life with beautiful roadmap visualizations that are not possible in Jira on its own. You can use the beautiful swim lane and timeline views to create a crystal clear strategy for the time and resource allocation. So as you normally get to utilize the swim lane and timeline views with your roadmap, you can do the exact same thing with these integrations as well. So some of the benefits of integrating with RoadMonk. You can integrate with the software you and your team already use. You reduce the data entry when building your boardroom ready roadmaps, aggregate data for multiple sources and tools onto a single portfolio roadmap. And I'm going to show you that later near the end of the demonstration. RoadMonk's native custom fields let you add additional layers of detail. Highly customizable visualizations help you tailor your roadmap. And of course, there's many more. And I'm going to show you all these throughout the demonstration today. So just to give you a quick understanding of our newest integrations, we have GitHub, GitLab, Asana, Trello, and Shortcut. And all of these are new to RoadMonk, and they will allow you to integrate essentially the same way that it has been provided with Jira and DevOps. And if these are something of interest to you, please, of course, let us know, and we'd be happy to provide you with more information related to these integrations. So in addition to that, with these integrations, it allows you with that high-level picture of your project. RoadMonk is going to deliver in these areas. You get to visualize your data in a consumable, simple to understand roadmap. Create a one-way connection with any of the supported integrations. Pull the content from that integration onto your roadmap, and then, of course, you can visualize it against other projects from other tools your team uses. And as I mentioned before, you can loop all this back into a portfolio, and I'll show you how you can do integrations, more than one integration into a portfolio. So I'll demonstrate with Jira, but also show you another one of our newest integrations on how you can connect those together. So again, a little bit of information on our Azure DevOps integration, seamless data transfer between RoadMonk and Azure DevOps. Directly integrate your roadmap with existing projects in Azure DevOps. And then, of course, teams can deliver from ADO to automate and elevate their existing road mapping processes. So now let's get a little more deeper into Jira specifically, and of course, dive deep into that demonstration in a little bit. So essentially, when it comes to RoadMonk for Jira, you get to connect your high-level strategy with day-to-day planning by syncing your data seamlessly between RoadMonk and Jira. So some of the benefits on how you can build your roadmap utilizing Jira includes two-way and one-way sync. So whether you want your source of truth to be Jira or to have both RoadMonk and Jira essentially be the source of truth, you have the option there. We have custom Jira query language, so that's an option that you can utilize when building your roadmap. Automatic date mapping as well as intelligent field mapping to make things simple and flexible when you're utilizing this integration. And then, of course, we support both the Jira Cloud and Server. All right, so now I'm going to walk us through the demonstration and kind of show you, some of the processes in order to set up not just integrations in general, but of course, specifically with Jira, and then we'll show you that portfolio outlook there. So the first thing you're going to want to do when you're working with the integrations is to go to the bottom left of the Roadmonk dashboard and go to your account settings. Here, you're going to want to go over to the integration tab. And this is where you're going to be able to set up all these integrations. So you can see on this page here that all the integrations that I mentioned in the presentation are available here. And it's quite simple to set it up. You just need to add an integration, select one of the options here. So if I choose Jira software, and then all you have to do is provide a name and then give the URL. Very easy to set up, and you can do the same approach for all of the integration options here. So now to kind of go into the actual building of an integration using Jira, I'm going to go to one of the roadmaps we already have built here. So Integrationjira, and break down the steps necessary in order to get all this data onto the page you see here. So you'll be able to see in the top right of the screen, if you go over to the integrations tab, this is where you can actually set up an integration. So we already have one set up, so we're going to modify this setup. Here is normally you would select the integration you want to use, so it would be Jira integration. When you get onto this page, there's a step-by-step process to follow in order to get your integration set up in Roadmonk. So the first thing you'll see here with the sync settings is to select whether you're going to use a one-way or a two-way sync. So with the one-way sync, you're going to be utilizing this if you still want Jira to be the source of truth for your information. However, you can see here you have a two-way Jira sync option as well. And this is if you want to be able to push things from Roadmonk into Jira too. So you have that option. As well, you'll see here at the bottom, there's a schedule, and you have the option to push this information, basically refresh it on this schedule that you select here. So if you want it to be syncing every 1 hour, 12 hours, or none, you have that option. Next thing to do is to go over to the credentials. Here, you need to set up your API token in order to get your Jira to sync, of course, with Roadmap. So you'll see here, it's a pretty simple process. You just need to select the email and then add an API token. And once you have that set up, you're able to move on to actually mapping and do your date in order to connect to the Jira server. So now that I move over to the filter, there's a couple of options you need to set up here. So firstly, before talking about setting up your issue type and your status, this is an area where I want to point out that you have the option to use that JQL, as I mentioned earlier. So you can set that on and use that custom JQL if that's an option for you. However, I'm going to stick with basis through this process. And as I mentioned, here you need to set up your issue type and your status. So as I click here on the issue type, you'll see that you have the option of task, story, bug, and epic. You can select all of them. You can select one of them. It's really up to what you would like to bring into Roadmonk. And then, of course, you can see here status. Again, you have the option to select one, multiple, whatever you would like to bring in. So for example, if you just want to see what's in progress in your Jira, you could just select that, and that's going to be the data that is pulled in. The next thing is to go over to the dates in field. And there's a lot of options here on what you would like to bring in. You have the ability to add your dates. You can set up the progress and issue count. A lot of flexibility here. One thing I do want to point out is fields to sync. There are a few that are mandatory. So you'll notice here that you can't actually turn off things such as priority projects. However, there's a few that you can select on. So a lot of flexibility in the sense of what you would like to bring in terms of the fields from Jira into the road mapping when you're working with this. And then the last step for this, when you go to the item links, you have the option to include the item links or exclude it. And of course, this gives you the flexibility to go back into Jira as I can demonstrate in a bit. So that's kind of the step-by-step process on how you can, set up the integrations in your account settings, set up an integration when you're road mapping to make your Jira integration function and roadmaps. But now that it's all set up, I want to show you what it will look like visually so you can see the power of setting up Jira in Roadmonk. So if I go over to a timeline view here, you can see the information that you have within Jira on your roadmap. It's very nicely, it's very visually appealing. You can do this for timeline in swim lane view. If we go over to the format tab, you can set up your header and subheader as normal. So you can see that Epic link is the header and the assignee is the subheader. It's really visually appealing. It's a great way to get your Jira information onto this view and to have it presented very well. So definitely boardroom ready content you can deliver here. So with that information there, I want to show you what it looks like to set up this through a portfolio. So not just to have a Jira integrated roadmap here, but also to utilize another integration option and to show how they can sync together. So if we go back to our main page here and select one of our portfolios we have here created, integrations portfolio, Jira and Trello. So just as you would normally create a portfolio roadmap, it's going to bring you to that select your source view here on the top right of the page. And when you select this, it's going to ask you, as usual, which sources you would like to bring in, which views you'd like to bring in. And you can see here, we're using those naming conventions to be able to see all these different integration options. And we have that integration with Jira that I just showed you selected, as well as a Trello option selected. And you can see here, on this particular portfolio that we have multiple integrations on the timeline view, very nicely visually appealing here. It's well presented, and it's really easy to see which one of these, with the data here, what represents the Trello and what represents the Jira. So if I click here on the target product launch, we can see that it's from the Trello integration roadmap. And then if I click on one such as email change, the items that are in green, we can see that it's connected to the integrations with Jira. So a lot of flexibility and a lot of the capabilities that you would normally do with road mapping on its own, you can see here as well. Last thing I wanted to show you is the ability to actually filter this information out to even get it to a smaller visual tool here. So if you see again in the top right, if I click filter, and I want to select assignee. And let's just say I want to select Michael Smith here and update the filter. It's going to narrow the information down to what you want to see, and especially across multiple integration options. So you can see, we have our Trello information for Michael Smith, as well as our Jira integration roadmap for Michael Smith. So this is a very great way to narrow your information down across multiple integrated roadmaps to make things a lot easier for you. And then as just the normal best practice that I always tell is to make sure that you have cleared your filters, because as you do work with filters, and if you forget to clear it, you're going to think you lost your data, or someone else might come into the page and not see this data. So this is definitely a best practice that I always push forward. So that kind of summarized, yes.
Sorry, I believe there's also another way to see that color coding that you just showed us. There's a side panel that you can...
legend?
Yes.
Yes, definitely a great thing to point out there. So you'll notice on the legend on the right side of the screen, we have the green, as you can see here in green, it specifically tells you that that's with the Jira integration roadmap. And then the orange here points out that's for the Trello roadmap.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So that does summarize what I wanted to show you in terms of the integration options, how to set it up, and then of course, how you can visualize Jira as well as other integrations on a portfolio roadmap.
So Cody, while we're still in here, maybe we can answer some questions that we got since we're still in the environment. So we have one from Erin here. What date fields do RoadMonk use for Jira? So I believe what kind of date information can you bring in from Jira to RoadMonk?
So let's go back into a single portfolio roadmap, because you actually can't make changes. Just a single roadmap, because you can't actually make the changes on a portfolio roadmap. So we'll go back to the integrations with Jira here. And we'll go back to modifying the setup. So here, when you go to the dates and fields, this is where you have the options on the information you'd like to do for date mapping. So as you can see here, you can add a start date, a due date, specific time. So a few options in terms of that. But it is under the tab here, dates and fields.
All right, awesome. And then another question we got was, how can I ensure that the start and end dates from Jira come in automatically into RoadMonk? I believe this is about how you can keep them in sync.
So in terms of your dates, if you're using one-way sync, so I'll go over to this sync page again. If you're using one-way sync, the information that you are changing in Jira, so if you change the dates, it is going to sync into Roadmap. So if you make changes in Jira, and let's say you have it on a 12-hour schedule, it's going to update every 12 hours, and that information will be pulled into Roadmap. However, if you do two-way sync, you have the option to do it in Roadmap as well. So whether you make the changes in Jira or Roadmap, the changes will be reflected.
All right, perfect. I have another question here. The dates didn't come in. I believe somebody's following along as you're doing it as well. Did you make sure to choose the dates and fields from that tab as well when you're setting up your integration? You can, if you've already set up your integration, you can go back in and modify that as well to add those fields. Yes, okay. All right. So you have, okay, maybe we can reach out to you then after the session and see exactly what the situation is. Can you please repeat the dates? Okay. Yeah, I think we have some time today. Do you want to show again, Cody, how you can get into this window and modify the integration? Thank you.
So in terms of just modifying this specific roadmap. Okay, so on the top right of the screen here, these tabs, on the integration tab, you just have to click on modify setup, and it's going to give you the option to make those changes that you already set up. So you may have already set up your integration, but by clicking on modify setup, you have the option to make those changes here.
Yeah. And then if you go into the dates and fields tab, even if you haven't selected those beforehand, so if you haven't selected to bring over your start date from Jira or your due date from Jira, you can go ahead and check those options and then save, and that will bring over your dates. That should hopefully work.
Exactly. So I still have the option to select these and click save.
Okay, awesome. I believe you also had another question. How can I make the dependencies sticky, i.e. how show up even when I don't hover over the items? I believe this is about the portfolio roadmap, and we showed the legend where you can set the colors and how you want them to appear so that everyone knows where those items are coming from, whether it's Jira or another integration. Okay. More questions, thank you. How can you sync RoadMonk to different Jira boards for different Scrum teams? So you can set up the integration with a single project. I believe that's what you're asking.
That's correct, Dua, yes.
Define project. So yeah, that really depends on how your Jira situation or your Jira is set up. For us, we set it up as different projects. So every team has one or several projects that they work on. And then within those projects, we set up different teams and we bring in the epics and issues that have to do with those projects. And that's what you're seeing on the roadmap. I have a follow-up. So the dependencies start and end between two features, for example. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that question? I think I have a few more questions that came in earlier as well while we get more info on that. How do I generate and add an API token, Cody?
So again, this has to be done on an individual roadmap. So if we go back to the Jira integration roadmap, I kind of touched up on this, but to go a little further on that, again, kind of all your source of power here is to go to that top right of the page into the integrations tab. and to modify this. So in the credentials, this is where you'll need to set up an API token. So if I add a credential here, type in my email, and then I need to get an API token. So I'll go to my Atlassian page here, and I would have to create a new token in order to set that up. So if I click create API token, and just for the purpose of this, I'm going to put in test. It's quite simple. You just have to create it, copy it, and then we'll go over back to Roadmug. And this is where you just need to add your API token and add it there. And then you'll have the ability to select this one as well.
Okay, perfect. Another interesting question, are we able to add additional fields to integrated roadmaps, and what impact does that have?
So let's go back to the old data page here to show that. So this is actually a good thing to point out, because the next learning session is going to be based on account admin training. So we're going to go into a lot more detail in terms of fields, account fields, roadmap fields. So you'll get a little bit of a glimpse right here in terms of fields. When it comes to the integrations, so you can still add fields. So if I go to the right side of the screen, as you'll be able to see those new, that plus button to add a new field. It's right here at the top right, add field. And you have the ability to add, any of your favorite fields, which is a new feature we actually introduced a few weeks ago. So any of your favorite fields will show up first. You can see your account fields, any roadmap fields, and then of course you can create a new field. If you add a roadmap level field here, it is only going to show up on this Jira roadmap we're looking at. So if I wanted to show this information on the portfolio I was showing you, it won't align with the Trello roadmap as well. However, if you use the account level field, that information, of course, can be used across roadmaps. And in addition to that, in terms of the fields you're bringing from Jira are actually account level fields. So you don't have to worry about them being considered roadmap level fields because they're already account level fields.
Okay, thank you for that little piece of information at the end. I'm sure another question would have come in. Last question that I have here, is there a way to sync Roadmug and Jira off schedule or just instantaneously?
Absolutely. So again, if we go to the integrations, and I pointed out the ability to select a schedule. So here you can choose 1, 6, 12, or 24 hours on when the information is going to sync. So I know there was a question earlier about changing dates. How is it going to be reflected from Jira into Roadmug? So that information can be on a timed schedule, or you cannot have it update. However, if you don't want it to update, or if you just manually want to do that, as I click here on integrations, instead of clicking the modify setup, we just have to click refresh now. And this is going to refresh the information. So if you're doing two-way sync, it's going to go right into Jira, and vice versa in terms of just a one-way sync. So once this is done refreshing, it will let you know here that it has completed its sync, and that's how you can refresh it manually.
All right, awesome. I have one more question here that just came in. Can you demonstrate how we can manage different projects of Trello and Jira? Is it under one roadmap, or do we need to create separate roadmaps for each project, even if we have already integrated with Trello and Jira both?
No, that's an excellent question. And that is kind of the whole, the function and the benefit of a portfolio roadmap, because as you're using integrations, whether you're using Jira or Trello, you have to use the one integration per roadmap. However, again, the power of a portfolio is you can bring all these projects together. So you do have to manage it on separate roadmaps, but when you create a portfolio, you'll be able to see all your information aligned with each other.
I think we're good on questions, Cody. I think we can move back to our presentation. Yes. Okay. All right. Well, thank you again, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.